I've been blessed by natural sunlight. Hi guys, what's up? My name is David and welcome back to my channel. So, if you don't know me, I am a student of Scandinavian studies, currently on exchange at Stockholm University. And last weekend I went on a interesting trip to the north of Sweden to a place called Jokkmokk and to visit a very special festival kind of thing going on there. And I want to talk about that today. So I went to this thing called Jokkmokk Sámi market, which is an event that's organized every year, I think the first weekend of February, something like that. And it's basically a big market where a lot of stuff is being sold, but also a lot of activities going on because it's, as the name implies, it's Jokkmokk Sámi market. And if you didn't know, the Sámi are a indigenous people living in the north of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia. So it's mostly like about them. They have a lot of exhibitions. There's like museums and stuff. There's artists. There's a lot of activities surrounding reindeer because reindeer are very important in that part of Scandinavia. So yeah, that's very interesting. So I went there from Stockholm by train, which took 14 hours, because Sweden is a very big country. This is how this looks like on a map. Like this is Stockholm, and this is where I went. So I've never traveled so long in one country. It's like insane. I know for people in America that's like nothing, but in Europe that's quite special. So the temperatures a few weeks ago there went up to minus 40 degrees Celsius. But last weekend it was only -1, which was kind of disappointing considering traveling to literally the Arctic Circle in February. You'd expect there to be like very low temperatures. But at the end of the day, it wasn't that bad because I spent the entire day outside. So that would be kind of less pleasant if it was minus 40 degrees Celsius. But yeah, I went on a very nice train trip to the north of Sweden. I've never been so far up north before, and it's like so beautiful. Like here in Stockholm, the winter is basically it's because it's close to the sea and it's quite down south. It's similar to winter on the continent. So it's like it's cold, yeah, and some snow. Right now it's actually snowing, but it's not extreme. But up north there was like 2 meters of snow along the roads, so that was crazy. And it's so sparsely populated. So I went by bus from the train station I arrived to the marketplace, and it was like an hour of nothing, just forest and mountains and snow. It looked amazing. But I want to get to the main point, which is why exactly I decided to go to this market. So, as you know, I am a student of Scandinavian studies. And generally, when people think of Scandinavia, they think of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Maybe Iceland and Finland, considering what your definition of the term Scandinavia is. But some people tend to forget that there's actually like ethnic minorities and indigenous people living there, which are still not always treated like equal citizens of the respective nations they live in, because they have their own territory, which is called Sámi, but it's not a country. It's divided by Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. So even though they have their own culture, they have their own languages, which are officially recognized, but also not in the way that they could be, because there's multiple Sami languages. There's like, I think, 9 of them. Oh, but it still just recognizes one, as far as I know. But yeah, it's quite a big terrain that they're inhabiting. And for a long time, it wasn't really of importance to the Nordic nations because there wasn't much going on up north. But once Russia started being a big problem in about like the 19th century, I suppose, maybe earlier even, the Nordic countries really started thinking about having strict borders up north. And because back then there weren't really any permanent settlements in the north, there was just reindeer herding lands, but reindeer do not stay in one place. If there's no food anymore in one place, they travel to another place, and that happens to cross country borders. So when these borders were made, it was a big problem for the reindeer herding people. So once these terrains were like officially included in the respective countries, the people there actually started being restricted because they couldn't travel freely anymore. There was a time where they could, but at some point it was just nope, it's too dangerous because of Russia. And sometimes they were repatriated, just put into other places because they were supposed to live in another country, even though they led a nomadic lifestyle. And but that's not even that's like only the beginning of the whole issue. Then there was this thing that the Nordic countries started being interested in this culture and wanted to preserve it, but in a very obsessive way. They had this thing called Lapska Varalap, which means lap should stay lap. It's like a slur for the Sámi people, basically. They used to be called like that, meaning that they weren't really allowed to modernize. They were just supposed to keep living the lifestyle they already had, which was kind of detrimental to their development as a nation and as humans. Because it's great to conservate indigenous cultures, but not that strictly. They should be allowed to do what they want and not what the government wants them to do. So that became a very big thing. And then there was this whole thing with the Racial Biology Institute, which started measuring them and using them as like experiments to see whether there's big differences between the Nordic race and them, which inspired a certain group of people in Germany in the last century, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know how much I can say about this without, having some problems with YouTube. So I'm just going to say that if you know, you know. So yeah, that was a huge problem. And even in this day and age, they're still, even though they're recognized as an official minority and have their official recognized minority language, they have their national day, which was actually this week. But it's still not going great. It's still their land is now being used to build, for example, mines or power plants, which is also without their consent. Because the Swedish government and other governments just cannot comprehend that because land is empty doesn't mean it's not being used. So, yeah, it just kind of makes me angry that this whole thing is still going on. And when people think about Scandinavia, they think about like the cool stuff and the good stuff and, IKEA and woolen sweaters. But there's still people being oppressed. And I just wanted to put that out there. So, as a student of Scandinavian studies, I kind of felt like I had to go there to see with my own eyes from the Sami perspective and not from the Scandinavian countries' perspective that I've been taught, because I've had lectures about the situation there, but it was still very. I mean, I still got these lectures from people that are not indigenous. So I went there and I went to the item museum and I went to lectures about sustainability in the north and preserving Sami craftsmanship, because I just really wanted to hear their story and see their perspective. And it was also just very nice and colorful. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And it was just a very nice trip up north. And I would recommend anyone that is interested in um, Scandinavia to also see that part, especially if you're interested in Vikings and Viking Age like me, because there was a lot of contact in the Viking Age between the Vikings and the Sami people. And their belief systems, for example, show clear influences. It's actually something that I would like to research in the future, because there's so many Sami in elements in Old Norse mythology, but also in how modern Norse paganism is being done. For example, like shaman drums, which are a very typical Sami thing, which are now being used by every single Nordic band that's trying to be authentically Viking. So yeah, I think that anyone that is even somewhat interested in either the Viking Age or considers themselves modern pagan or neo pagan or however you'd like to call yourself, just be aware that the stuff you do is sometimes just copied from indigenous communities. And it's not always bad because sometimes just, cultural exchange happens. And if both parties are aware of that and allow it, then there's nothing wrong with that. It starts being wrong when it's just one culture stealing stuff from the other culture, especially if that other culture has been oppressed for hundreds of years. But yeah, that's all I have to say for today. I have been blessed with the sun that is shining straight into my eyes, so I won't see anything for the next 10 minutes. But what can you do? So thank you for coming to this video. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know below. Once again, if you have anything that you would like me to talk about on this channel, please let me know in the comments, because at some point I'm going to run out of ideas. And I just don't know if the stuff that I am interested in, my subscribers are also interested in, and I would like to make content that's also nice for you and not just for me. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.